September 30th, 2026. Christa Pike will walk into a small room in Tennessee and die. She can choose how: lethal injection or the electric chair. She will become the first woman executed in that state in over 200 years. Her crime happened when she was 18 years old. She tortured a classmate for nearly an hour. She carved a pentagram into the girl's chest while she was still alive. She kept a piece of her skull as a trophy. Most people have never heard her name. There are 45 women on death row in America right now. 45 women waiting to die for crimes that shock judges and juries. Crimes so brutal that the state decided these women should never walk free again, should never breathe free air again, should die. But while the country knows the names of male serial killers and mass murderers, these women remain invisible, their stories untold, their faces unknown. Since 1976, 18 women have been executed in the United States. In that same time, more than 1,500 men were put to death. Women make up less than 2% of death row inmates nationwide, less than 2% of executions. The rarity makes each case stand out, makes each story more disturbing. Because for a woman to receive a death sentence in America, her crime must be beyond comprehension. The violence must be extreme, the cruelty undeniable. These are not stories of self-defense gone wrong, not tales of abused women finally snapping. These are calculated murders, torture, the killing of children, the systematic destruction of innocent lives. And yet America forgets these women exist. The media moves on. The public looks away. Perhaps because the image of female killer clashes with everything society wants to believe about women. Perhaps because confronting these crimes means confronting uncomfortable truths about human nature itself. This is a story of the women nobody talks about. The killers waiting to die in cells most people will never see. The crimes that shattered families but disappear from headlines. The cases that raise questions America refuses to answer. Like, share, and subscribe. Stay with us for more real stories and honest lessons from the inside. Christa Pike was born into a world that did not want her. Her mother was an alcoholic who brought strange men into their home. Men who looked at young Christa in ways that made her skin crawl. By the time she was 9 years old, she had been molested repeatedly. By 12, she was cutting herself. By 14, she was hospitalized for mental illness. Her childhood was not an excuse. It was context, a window into how a young girl could become capable of unthinkable violence. January 12, 1995, Knoxville, Tennessee. Christa Pike was 18 years old and attending a job training program. She had a boyfriend named Tatterell Ship. She believed another student, 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer, was interested in him. Whether this was true or not did not matter. In Christa's mind, Colleen had to be dealt with. She had to be punished. She had to be eliminated. Christa convinced Colleen to walk with her into a secluded area of a University of Tennessee agricultural campus. Tatterell came along. So did another friend, Shadala Peterson. Colleen thought they were just hanging out, talking, getting some air. She had no idea she was walking to her death. When they reached a remote, wooded area, Christa turned on her. The attack was not quick. It was not a moment of rage that ended in seconds. It lasted between 30 minutes and a full hour. Christa beat Colleen with chunks of asphalt. She slammed rocks into her head again and again. Colleen begged for her life. She pleaded. She tried to crawl away. Christa pulled out a box cutter. She carved a pentagram into Colleen's chest while the girl was still breathing, still conscious, still feeling everything. When it was finally over, when Colleen Slemmer lay dead on the frozen ground, Christa took a piece of her skull. She put it in her pocket. She kept it as a souvenir. Later, she would show it to other students, bragging, laughing, reliving the kill. The police found Colleen's body the next day. The brutality of the murder scene shocked even experienced homicide detectives. Colleen's head had been smashed repeatedly. Her face was unrecognizable. The pentagram carved into her flesh was deep and deliberate. This was not a crime of passion. This was torture. This was sadism. This was evil playing out in real time in a wooded clearing in Tennessee. Christa Pike was arrested within days. She confessed. She showed no remorse. She seemed almost proud. During her trial, prosecutors presented evidence of the hours-long torture session. They showed the jury crime scene photographs that made people gasp and look away. They described how Colleen had begged for mercy and received none, how she had died slowly and in agony. The jury took less than 3 hours to convict. They recommended death. The judge agreed. Christa Pike became the youngest woman on death row in America. She was 19 years old. That was 30 years ago. She is still alive, still waiting, still appealing. And in less than 2 years, the state of Tennessee plans to finally carry out her sentence. Christa Pike is not alone on death row. She shares that distinction with 44 other women scattered across American prisons. Each one has a story. Each one committed an act so heinous that 12 citizens decided they should die. And almost all of them killed people they knew, people they lived with, people who trusted them. Lisa Montgomery was executed on January 16, 2021. She was the first woman executed by the federal government in nearly 70 years. Her crime happened in December 2004 in a small town in Missouri. Lisa had been pretending to be pregnant for months. She told her husband she was expecting. She told friends and family. She showed them her growing belly. But it was all a lie. And when the due date approached, Lisa needed a baby. She needed one fast. She found Bobby Joe Stinnett online. Bobby Joe was 8 months pregnant and selling rat terrier puppies. Lisa drove to her home under the pretense of buying a dog. When Bobby Joe let her inside, Lisa strangled her with a rope until she lost consciousness. Then Lisa cut Bobby Joe open. She removed the baby from her womb while Bobby Joe was still alive, still dying on her own living room floor. Lisa took the infant and drove home. She showed the baby to her husband and claimed she had just given birth. Bobby Joe bled to death alone. The police found Lisa within 24 hours. The baby survived. Lisa Montgomery spent 16 years on death row before she was finally executed by lethal injection. She was 52 years old. Her lawyers argued she had severe mental illness, that she had been sexually trafficked as a child by her own mother, that her brain was damaged from years of abuse. The courts acknowledged all of this. They executed her anyway. Darlie Routier sits on death row in Texas. She has been there since 1997. She was convicted of murdering her own 5-year-old son, Damon. Prosecutors believe she also killed her other son, 6-year-old Devin, though she was never charged with that death. The crime happened in June 1996 in their suburban home in Rowlett, Texas. Darlie called 911 claiming an intruder had broken in and attacked her family. She had stab wounds on her arms and throat. Her 2 boys were bleeding on the floor. But investigators found problems with her story almost immediately. There was no evidence of a break-in, no forced entry, no intruder. The blood evidence did not match her version of events. Her wounds appeared superficial and self-inflicted. A bloody sock was found down the street, but it seemed staged. And then there was a videotape. 8 days after the murders, Darlie was filmed at her son's grave having a birthday party for Devin. She was laughing, spraying silly string, dancing, smiling. The jury saw that video. They convicted her in less than 4 hours. Darlie maintains her innocence to this day. Her supporters say she was convicted because of that videotape, because grieving mothers are supposed to look a certain way, act a certain way, because she did not fit the mold of the devastated parent. Her detractors point to the evidence, the lack of an intruder, the suspicious injuries, the timeline that makes no sense. Darlie has been on death row for almost 28 years. Her execution date has not been set. Her appeals continue. Her sons remain dead. The path to death row for women is different than for men. Statistics show that women who kill strangers almost never receive the death penalty. Women who kill during robberies or random attacks rarely face execution. The women on death row in America kill people in their homes, people in their families, children, and they did it with a level of cruelty that juries could not forgive. Melissa Lucio sits on death row in Texas. She was convicted of murdering her 2-year-old daughter, Mariah, in 2007. Mariah died from injuries consistent with severe abuse. Bruising covered her body. Her head had been smashed. Medical examiners said the injuries could only have come from deliberate violence. Melissa confessed after hours of interrogation. She told police she was responsible. The jury convicted her. The judge sentenced her to death. But Melissa's case is different from the others. Evidence emerged after her conviction that raised serious doubts. Mariah had fallen down a steep staircase 2 days before her death. The injuries could have been from that fall. Melissa has an IQ of 77. She was interrogated for hours without a lawyer while grieving her dead child. She was a survivor of sexual abuse and domestic violence. When authority figures pushed her, she agreed with them. She said what they wanted to hear. 5 of the 12 jurors who convicted her now say they would not have voted for death if they had known all the facts. Her execution was stayed in April 2022, just 2 days before she was scheduled to die. She remains on death row. The courts are still deciding if she actually killed her daughter or if she confessed to a crime she did not commit. Brenda Andrews sits on death row in Oklahoma. There is no doubt about her guilt. In November 2001, she and her boyfriend, James Pavitt, murdered her husband, Rob Andrew. Rob was shot 17 times in his own garage. Brenda had taken out a large life insurance policy on him just months before. She wanted him dead so she could be with James and collect the money. She helped plan the murder. She helped carry it out. She lied to police. She tried to cover it up. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury showed no mercy. Brenda became the first woman sentenced to death in Oklahoma in nearly 90 years. James Pavitt was also sentenced to death. They have both been on death row for over 20 years. Brenda's children lost their father to murder and their mother to death row. They lost everything in a single night because Brenda wanted money and a new life. She destroyed her family for greed, for lust, for selfishness. Kelly Gisandana was executed in Georgia in September 2015. She was the first woman executed in that state in 70 years. Her crime happened in 1997. Kelly convinced her boyfriend, Greg Owen, to murder her husband, Doug Gisandana. She wanted Doug dead so she could collect his life insurance and be with Greg. On the night of the murder, Kelly went out with friends to establish an alibi. Greg ambushed Doug, forced him to drive to a remote area, and stabbed him to death. Kelly came home and pretended to be shocked when Doug did not return. The plan fell apart quickly. Greg confessed and testified against Kelly. He received life in prison with the possibility of parole. Kelly received death. Many people said this was unfair. Greg did the actual killing. Greg wielded the knife. But prosecutors argued Kelly was a mastermind. She manipulated Greg. She planned everything. She deserved a harsher sentence. Kelly spent 18 years on death row. She found religion. She became a minister. She counseled other inmates. She expressed deep remorse. Her children begged for mercy. Pope Francis asked Georgia to spare her life. The state refused. On September 30th, 2015, Kelly Gisandana was executed by lethal injection. She sang Amazing Grace as the drugs entered her veins. The question that hangs over every death row case is the same. Does this person deserve to die? Can the state take a life in the name of justice? For the families of victims, the answer is often clear. Their loved ones were taken from them with violence and cruelty. They want the killer to face the ultimate punishment. They want closure. They want the person who destroyed their world to pay the highest price possible. But death row is not about quick justice. It is about decades of waiting, appeals that stretch for years, legal battles that cost millions of dollars. The average time between sentencing and execution in America is now over 20 years. Some inmates wait 30 years or more. They grow old in tiny cells. They watch other inmates die. They count down the days knowing their turn will eventually come. Unless it does not. Unless a court overturns their sentence. Unless new evidence emerges. Unless public opinion shifts enough to save them. Women on death row face challenges men do not. They are housed separately, often in extreme isolation. Many prisons have only a handful of female death row inmates, so they spend years with almost no human contact. No programs. No activities. Just a cell and endless waiting. Studies show that women are more likely than men to have experienced severe childhood trauma before committing their crimes. More likely to have been victims of sexual abuse. More likely to suffer from serious mental illness. This does not excuse their actions. It does not bring back the people they killed. But it raises uncomfortable questions about how society creates killers and then kills them in return. Christa Pike's attorneys argue that if she committed her crime today, she would not receive the death penalty. Juvenile sentencing laws have changed. Understanding of brain development has evolved. Courts now recognize that 18-year-olds do not have fully developed brains. They are more impulsive, more susceptible to peer pressure, less capable of understanding long-term consequences. Christa was 18 when she tortured Colleen Slemmer to death. She is now 48 years old. She has spent her entire adult life on death row. She has brain damage from childhood abuse. She has bipolar disorder and PTSD. She tried to hire a fellow inmate to kill a prison guard, which destroyed any sympathy people might have had for her. She remains violent. She remains dangerous. And in 2026, Tennessee plans to end her life. There are families on both sides of every execution. The family of the victim who wants justice, who needs to see the killer punished, who cannot move forward until the sentence is carried out, and the family of the condemned, parents who raised a child who became a monster, siblings who love someone who committed unspeakable acts, children who must live with the knowledge that their mother is a murderer waiting to die. These families are forgotten. Their grief is ignored. They did not ask for this pain, but they carry it anyway. The women on death row will die one by one. Some by lethal injection, some by electric chair, some by methods that vary by state. Their deaths will be witnessed by small groups of people in sterile rooms. Their bodies will be removed and buried or cremated. Their names will fade from memory. The crimes they committed will become footnotes in legal textbooks and true crime documentaries. And America will continue to debate whether execution is justice or revenge, whether the state should have the power to kill its citizens, whether these women deserve mercy or got exactly what they earned. There are no easy answers. Only 45 women waiting to find out if their time has finally come. The cases nobody talks about are still happening in cells across America, still waiting for appeals to run out, still counting down to dates that may or may not arrive. These are the women society wants to forget. The killers hidden away where no one has to think about them. But they are still there, still breathing, still waiting, still human, despite the monstrous things they have done. And that makes their stories the most difficult ones to tell. If you found this story meaningful and would like to see more documentaries like this, a subscription would mean a lot, but only if it feels right to you. See you next time.